Hey, 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 what is good? Boxing fans, boxing critics, and boxing analysts. Renee Box Young going live today. I just wanted to go live just a little bit. I don't want to take too much time, but I want to chop some things up with you. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope everybody's doing great so far in 2020 March, right? We're around the middle of March already now. We're on the 9th, right? But this year is going by pretty quick. The year is going by pretty fast already, right? I mean, it feels like yesterday that we were in January celebrating the new year. So, I mean, time is going by fast. Boxing has been pretty interesting recently so far in the year 2020, right? Even though we're, barely kicking off the new year, I guess we can say, right? It's March, just a couple months into it. We're having a great year, interesting year of boxing so far, right? First quarter of the year. And I just want to chop some things up. Sometimes the only time I can really go live is around at this time. So I just want to talk about some news, some news. We got a special guest coming up soon. Hopefully he'll be up here soon, right? I just got in contact with him and, just want to break it up, break it down with you, chop some things up with you and interesting things that's going on right now in the sport of boxing. We had an upset recently. Ack Reacher, what is good? Ack, what is good? Ack back on the attack. Christopher Jernett. Hey, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Like I said, man, this is really the only time I can go live. I really don't do it too much, but periodically I go live, and we got a special guest coming soon. So, as in the thumbnail, right? I've been in contact with Kurtis Anderson, the historian, for a while now, and it occurred to me to have him on one of my lives. So hopefully we'll get him on soon. Interesting. Like I said, interesting year in boxing so far. Kaunaki, if I'm not mistaken, right, got knocked out Saturday night. A lot of people called it an upset, but I kind of foreseen. I kind of knew he was going to go down sooner or later. But hey, interesting year of boxing, man. So let's get right to it, man. Let's get right to it. We got Kurtis Anderson in the building. Let me get him on here real quick. All right, let's get him on here. Kurtis Anderson, how you doing, brother?
Hey, Renee Box Young, man. It's a pleasure to be on here, man. Been waiting. You have a good show, man. I'm ready to talk some boxing.
Heck yeah, man. It's a definite honor, right, for having the historian here on. Kurtis Anderson has so much information. He's really, really knowledgeable, highly knowledgeable in the sport of boxing, also known as a historian. That's why he's called the historian, man. That's why he has that name, that AKA, also known as, right, that nickname. So I want to get right to this, man. Let's get right to it. I don't like to, I just want to get right direct to this, what we're going to talk about. A few things in boxing. First, I want to talk about this, brother Kurtis, and we'll get into his comments right now in a moment. Drug cheats, not just drug cheats in boxing, but in general, cheats. Okay, and I want to get Kurtis's point of view. We all know, we all have been seeing, right? All this that's going on with Tyson Fury. I think that, in my personal opinion, in my humble opinion, there is a phenomenal amount of evidence, nowadays in this digital era, media. It's just really hard for someone in the spotlight to hide, right? To hide what they're doing, especially in boxing or in sports or what have you. Tyson Fury, this whole glove scandal, right? Now, let's go down the list just a little bit, okay? So we have Tyson Fury with this recent, apparent, which I think is pretty obvious, okay, cheating tactic that he has used against Wilder, Deontay Wilder, former heavyweight champ, the Warrior, Bronze Bomber, you know what I'm saying, Bomb Squad, this recent in the rematch, right? And then in the first, also, people are saying, taking videos and clips out of the first fight also, and previously also, that Tyson Fury has that reputation of, cheating with his gloves or potentially trying to cheat, bare knuckle fighting background, what have you. That's just with Tyson Fury. We go back also with Alejandra Jimenez, right? We go back to Gerald Big Baby Miller. We go down to also Dillian White. We go to Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, the list goes on. And this is just recent. This is just okay. Canelo, check this out real fast. All due respect to these fighters, I gotta respect all fighters. I've been saying it. This is what I rep in my channel. That I have to respect all fighters. Anybody who has the guts, to get in that ring, I gotta respect that. For the minimal boxing experience that I have and training down here in Mexico, sparring, I gotta respect it. You know what I mean? But I do not respect the cheating aspect. So, I mean, even with Canelo, get back to what I was saying, back to Canelo. So he had a recent interview on ESPN Knockouts, if I'm not mistaken, in Spanish, and he talked about, him, being thankful. Okay. I'm going to make a video on this later today. I should, at least, I was planning on doing it. He was talking about being like grateful for the fact that clenbuterol, a certain level of clenbuterol is acceptable for Mexican fighters. Okay. So, I mean, the list goes on and on as far as with, enhanced drug using or whatever. Right. So, Kurtis Anderson, what's your input on all this cheating in boxing, like corruption? And this also goes off, generally speaking, this goes to general corruption in boxing. You as a historian in the sport, bro, what is your input? I mean, is it more relevant now? Do we see more cheating in boxing now? Or is it similar to historically speaking, as far as cheating in boxing? What's your intake on that, bro?
Well, watching and knowing about boxing for 46 years, since I was 7 years old, my father, who's a boxer historian, along with my four uncles, they always told me about cheating in boxing. It never changed. I'm talking about fighters. I hear heavy rumors. Felix Trinidad, had this trick where he'll wrap his hands, and the hand wrappings will be legal. But what he would do, him and his father, he would dip his hands in ice cold water and harden the cast. I heard that for many years about Tito Trinidad, either going back to Jack Dempsey when he fought Jess Willard. His gloves was tampered with. He had Pastor Plaris. I mean, every time he would hit Willard, he would break his ribs, jaws. I mean, that was probably the worst beating in all the sports. Fighters thumbing other fighters. Roberto Duran thumbing Davey Moore, then going to his body in 1983 in the AWBA junior middleweight fight. Aaron Pryor and Leon Spinks with the black and brown bottle. Oh, who knows what was in those bottles? I hear many things. There was some type of juice where it gave you incentives, and water where it expanded your lungs so you can get a second or even a third win. Louis Resto, when he fought Irish Billy Collins, matter of fact, that was on the undercard of Duran and Davey Moore. Panama Lewis was a trainer who had the black bottle in Aaron Pryor's corner. He took the padding from Louis Resto gloves, and Billy Collins suffered, eye injuries, and he was never the same. So this has been going on for years. Steroids. You look at Big Baby Miller, who had multiple steroids in his sample. And Luis Ortiz, and I hear stories about Roy Jones and Shane Mosley. They were never indicted, but they was working with a certain person. So cheating always been prevalent, Renee. So it doesn't surprise me, but these fighters doesn't need it. Like somebody like Canelo, but see, I like Canelo because he has integrity. Now, when, I like to give fighters the benefit of the doubt. It depends. Certain fighters, so cheating always been prevalent. I could tell you a quick story about Harold Johnson, who was a former light heavyweight champion in the 60s. His orange was injected with a drug through a needle, and he didn't perform well because he was drugged. This is a true story because the orange was tested and it came back positive. I forgot the drug, but it's nothing new. I've seen all kinds of crazy things in the sport of boxing.
My gosh, man. Kurtis Anderson just gave a lengthy list of cheating, historically in boxing. And, somebody like Kurtis, I'm saying, with so much experience, more than 40 some odd years, I'm saying, in the sport of boxing, watching boxing, growing up on the sport, having family involved in the sport. You know what I mean? It's to the point where, it's not surprising anymore. You know what I'm saying? And I can even say, I guess, right, Kurtis, I don't even think you're surprised with upsets in boxing, right?
Absolutely not. Tyson and Douglas is the benchmark of upsets when it comes to the sport of boxing. Douglas was a 42-1 underdog. Mike Tyson was deemed invincible,
Yep.
and he was knocked out. I seen there was a fight between Danny Romero and Johnny Tapia, and Danny Romero said I'm gonna take a tune-up fight against average fighter by the name of Willie Salazar, and he lost. Boxing is a very strange sport. Saturday, you seen a huge upset, and Amel Konami getting knocked out by Robert Helenius. Terry Norris, I remember he's getting knocked out by Simon Brown because the understory that fight, Renee, was Chavez and Terry Norris was going to fight, and when Terry Norris was getting bounced around the ring, you could see Chavez in the blue room with his camp laughing. Y'all thought that was funny. And Terry Norris got knocked out in the fourth round by Simon Brown. So anything can happen in the sport of boxing. I done seen it all, upsets galore. And that's what makes boxing so great, because one punch can end it all.
I was just gonna say that, man. I think that's the beauty of it. The sweet science. Apart from boxing being the sweet science, it's well, actually, it's in correlation to that, right? It's just everything's unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen, and that's what makes it beautiful. That's what I think in general, combat sports, right? You even go to UFC, you go to MMA. I mean, combat sports in general is unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen. Like you said, one punch can change it all. Cheats, you have it all. You know what I'm saying? And I wish personally, we're going to get on to the next topic in a moment, but I personally wish and hope. I hope that I hope that it's going to get a little bit more transparent, and we can even get to, as far as cheating and in general, like I said, get into a broader scope, corruption in boxing in general. We've heard of, throughout history of, sanctioned bodies, preferring other fighters over other fighters who, deserve the right, but money moves things. And, there has been, video cameras, there has been videotapes of, people, prominent names or what have you, and sanctioned bodies in hotel rooms where they do deals, dirty deals. They've been recorded and things like that, right? So my point in saying all this is, Kurtis, do you think that boxing will clean up to a certain extent, or do you think it will be as corrupt as it has been, or will it continue like this, or will it get worse as far as corruption and cheating in boxing?
When you don't have a federal commission, boxing is an underhanded sport, and the promoters win and sanctioning bodies win. You need a federal commission. Senator John McCain was supposed to clean up boxing, but mysteriously he turned his back on it and went on to other endeavors. I remember that.
When was that, bro?
That was around about 2006 that he was campaigning to clean up boxing. And have a federal commission. See, nobody can look over the promoters and the sanctioning bodies, so they can do what they want. They're free to do what they want. I mean, there was a friend of mine who ran the IBF in East Orange, New Jersey, Bob Lee. He was the head of IBF, and he was being investigated by the FBI. He did prison time. Wow. Because the promoter, what they do, they would pay him payola, and he would buy rankings, the promoters, and the IBF will put them at number 1 and number 2, mandatory. And he was found guilty by the court of law and served, I think he did a year, in prison. And, the IBF is like 15 minutes away from my house. It's in Springfield. They moved it, but, this is not new. In the 50s, you had the mob, Blinky Palermo and Frankie Carbo. You had fighters taking dives. So, they can get away with this, the sanctioning bodies, because boxing is an underhanded sport.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, without law enforcement or what have you, intelligence agencies getting their hands in the business, well, I guess it's gonna continue like this, and we just gotta enjoy it as it is. You know what I'm saying? And like you said, like for example, recently, like what you just mentioned a moment ago, like about you liking Canelo. I like him too. I definitely like him. I just think it's crazy. I just think it's kind of like, it's like, wow, like where they're now accepting, a certain level of clenbuterol. Do you personally buy that? I mean, do you think that's a legit reason? Look, okay, let me real fast. I live in Mexico now. Now, this is from my perspective because I live down here. You know what I mean? To a certain extent, I like you said, man, I completely agree. I give the benefit of the doubt to fighters, because like, for example, for Canelo, me living in Mexico, okay, I don't know as far as right now. I don't know if he lives in Mexico right now, but I'm sure he has, he has a house down here. I know that, here actually a couple hours from where I live, right? He's in Guadalajara. His house is in Guadalajara, and I live near here, I live near there. So I know he, sometimes comes down here and he does his business over here. But also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he also spends time in the United States as well. The reason why I say all this is because when he's down here in Mexico, here the meat, and I gotta support that view because it's true. I live here, you know what I'm saying? The meat here is, I mean, you go to all these little, I'm not little, but these ranches where they, have cattle, for the meat market, for the meat markets and things like that. They inject those things with who knows what substances. I mean, I hear it all over the place, because I talked to people from before who used to grow up in Mexico, the old timers, I'm seeing we call them in Spanish, los abuelitos, las abuelitas, you know what I mean? The grandparents, the grandfathers, those from back in the day, you know what I mean? They told they explained to us, to us youngsters, they say, you know what, the meat here, the food in general, now it's all contaminated with all this injections, growth hormone, et cetera, et cetera. So to a certain extent, I guess I can agree to a certain extent, I'm saying, right, with Canelo, like I give him the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, I disagree, right, with that excuse. That reason I can call it is because, I agree to the extent that, okay, he ate meat. Yes, he had clenbuterol in the system because of the meat that's contaminated here in general in Mexico. But at the same time, you can say, you know what? He makes millions. He can get special chefs, and that's another argument, right? So do you personally, do you give that a pass, brother? Like with Mexican fighters, being able to have a certain level of clenbuterol? If I'm not mistaken, WBC, has a new rule for that. Remember, that came out months ago, right? So do you kind of agree with that?
Well, I heard, clenbuterol is in the meat. I just have certain intuition about certain fighters that purposely cheat. I don't get that from Canelo. What I get is a guy who has integrity, because see, Canelo, when you really understand boxing, he lives like an old school fighter. He takes his craft very seriously.
Yeah, definitely.
I got him number 3 pound for pound behind Crawford and Lomachenko, but Canelo, he does. I don't get that from him. I really don't. Like little, when you see little things like Oscar didn't want him fight in Lara, and Lara kept talking. Canelo went to Oscar, said, make the fight. So to me, what I'm trying to say, Canelo embodies the spirit of an old school fighter. And I don't see him taking drugs to be better, because he doesn't need to, because he had the talent. So, I'm going to have to say, clenbuterol is into me. I don't have a problem with that word. But, I don't think he set out to cheat. I really don't. When I first heard about it, something being in the system, I said, then I found out it was like going through the meat. I can see that. I just don't see him cheating like that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm kind of along those lines too. And then, like you said, I don't think there's no reason. I think the same. As far as with Canelo with the clenbuterol issue. And he has no reason to do that. You know what I mean? And he's really one of those boxing roots type of mentality, you know what I mean? And he means business, and I got to respect that, you know what I'm saying? So getting on to the other point, let's continue here. Thank you so much, everybody who's joining in. Thank you guys so much. Remember to like, remember to share, subscribe. Hey, real quick, brother, this is off topic, but I want to ask you this, Kurtis. So that we can, everybody here, and I think they already are subscribed to you, you know what I mean? Are you going to push content sometime soon? I think it would be great if you do, but do you plan on doing that, pushing content in your channel soon?
Well, me and my wife, we own a business, Sacred Wellness and Beauty, and it keeps me like really busy. And
Ah, okay.
I'm close to my 15-year-old son, because he lives in like a really rough area, so I have to keep an eye on him, and me suffering from diabetes, and I don't
Oh, okay,
always
okay.
feel good, and
Right.
so I have multiple shows. You can find me on Blue Blood Sports TV and OG Boxing Talk. I'll be on Fanon
Yep.
tomorrow afternoon. Plus, I have
Mm,
the three wise men of boxing with me, Stormy B Man, and the phenomenal scrapbook boxing.
yeah.
So it's that's three shows right there, and plus with the business and
Yeah.
me not feeling well sometimes, and my son and other things. I'm kind of busy, so maybe in the near future, but not right now. I'm kind of happy doing co-hosting
Yeah.
shows for now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So if it is in the future, right? In the far future, near future, what have you, anybody who is subscribed or listening right now, go ahead and subscribe to Kurtis Anderson, and also go ahead and subscribe to all those other channels that Kurtis just mentioned, right? Scrapbook, Fanon, right? And all those other channels that he just mentioned a moment ago. Go ahead and go back. Can you mention those channels one more time? The shows they're on, bro, so that people can subscribe if any aren't.
Yes, that's Blue Blood Sports TV.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Uh, that's OG Boxing Talk, which comes on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for non-boxing. And the Three Wise Men of Boxing will be on this Saturday at 11 o'clock a.m. Me, Stormy B, and Scrapbook Boxing. And that show's a hardcore, historic, factual show, I'll call it, because we really concentrate on the history of boxing. We're going to do our top 10 Mexican fighters in the very near future. We're going to do our greatest white fighters. We're going to do greatest fights in boxing history, best trainers, best referees, best ring announcers. We got some really great stuff to talk about in the future on Three Wise Men of Boxing.
Awesome. There you go, you guys. If anybody is not subscribed to those channels, go subscribe now. Go subscribe to Kurtis Anderson. Go ahead and click on his YouTube also and go ahead and subscribe there. Even though he doesn't have content, and it may be in the future he will. So go ahead and subscribe to get ready there. Now, hey, let's go down to this, Kurtis. I want to talk to you about and this is, news, recent news of, and other channels have talked about it, but I want to get your intake. You probably have talked about in other channels, but I haven't gotten around to it. There are so many, so many things being pushed in other channels and lives and et cetera, et cetera. Just like you, I'm quite busy and I try my best to get, to be updated in these things, but, also go on articles online and news, et cetera, et cetera. But, we have, DAZN going global, if I'm not mistaken, around 200 countries, right? And this Canelo is going to launch this whole, inaugurate this whole global launching. What do you think about that, man? Do you think it's gonna be, a successful launching, a successful, business, I don't know what you call it, but do you think that's going to be good for the sport of boxing? DAZN launching in 200, approximately 200 countries?
Well, the way I see it, being astute boxing fan, whatever you historian, the more countries that DAZN will be seen in, the better it is for boxing, the platform itself. They're saying DAZN fell, but I'm subscribed to DAZN. I love it because the way I see it, the more boxing, the more better.
Yeah.
With England, Mexico, underrated Canadian fan base. See, is good, and it's going to be good for people in England because that's what boxing came from in 1681. But America is like real funny, Renee, because they're like, if they don't have a popular fighter, they don't really mess with boxing. So the Mexican fan base and the Canadian fan base, Irish, Polish, and England, they're upholding boxing right now. So DAZN, which will be seen in England, very shortly, I think it's going to be good because they're really crazy about their boxing, man. And the more platforms that any channel would got to do with boxing is good for the sport.
Definitely, and as a matter of fact, I'm pushing some content bit by bit. That's one of my objectives. Sorry, is that pushing more content in Spanish in my channel for Spanish listeners and viewers. And a few months ago, I pushed a video, some content of And this was before. Okay, check this out. Okay, let's go back a little bit. Okay, so Eddie Hearn, right, when he came to America, I think he came in an incorrect manner and an unprofessional way, right? Of him saying that, American promotional or promoters, right, and platforms such as PBC, et cetera, right? Him bad mouthing those promoters and saying that they don't know what to do. They don't know what they're doing. Pay per view is dead, and the models that they're doing are messed. They don't know how to do it, and this and that. I think he came about it the wrong way coming to America, and he always talked about an American takeover. Okay, and I totally agree with you that it's great for boxing. You know what DAZN is doing. The more platforms there are for boxing, the better. I mean, that's how I see it too. I just think that, Eddie Hearn, when he came about, when he came to America with that arrogance, I guess you can call it, offending, other promoters, when he could have came in a different approach, in a friendly manner, rubbing shoulders with these fellow promoters, and we could probably have had better, fighting, better matches, better matchups with other promoters, with Eddie Hearn doing it, I guess, a better way. But the reason why I say this is that he was talking a lot about an American takeover now. And I remember recently, when he came to Mexico, for El Gallo Estrada fight. He came for a fight with El Gallo Estrada. I forgot who he fought against, but it was here in Mexico a few months ago. And I left the link in the description and everything in that video, but I did it in Spanish. And the reason why I did this is because I was foreseeing and I was pushing content also in English. I just don't remember the videos of what they're called, but they're in my channel, about how Eddie Hearn months ago was talking about, you know what, we're gonna go global now. We're gonna do more. We're gonna do things outside. This goes back to when they were announcing the Saudi Arabia fight with Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz, the rematch. This is back in those times, months ago, when Eddie Hearn was saying, you know what, we're gonna take boxing outside of America. We're gonna go to other countries. We're gonna push boxing in other countries. I started pushing some content saying, you know what, Eddie Hearn's gonna go global now. This American takeover, it seems like he's forgetting about it or he's leaving it behind, and now he wants to push it globally, and he's using DAZN for that. So I kind of foresaw this coming. But do you think, Kurtis Anderson, that we're gonna get better matchups or better with this whole global push now? We'll probably get more obviously we're gonna see more international fighters, right? In different countries, in the zone, which we already do see now. Do you think that's going to be better, more competition for like American Western hemispherical fighters?
Yeah, that's a good idea. He came at America all wrong. He tried to guerrilla his way in,
Yeah,
and he really underestimated. Like, America has basketball and football, NFL, NBA, and hockey and everything. You know,
yeah,
uh, he did. If he had a fighter that the American fighter that like a Mayweather or Sugar Ray Leonard, I'm just throwing those names out there, then he could have took over the sport of boxing. But like I said a few minutes ago, American fans, I know them, black or white, they don't move like that.
yeah,
They're celebrity starved. They want a fighter that can capture their imagination, like a Ali or the De La Hoya or Mike Tyson. There's no guys like that in boxing.
yeah,
You have a lot of popular fighters. So Eddie Hearn really kind of overplayed his hand when it
yeah,
came
definitely.
to having an American takeover. He should have been very humble and
Yeah, definitely.
sign American fighters on the low. And he could have started from there, but I think he kind of knew that, but he's trying to save face. So Saudi Arabia is now friends with him, and he must made off good, because I thought that was weird having a fight in Saudi Arabia. I'm like,
I
wait
think
a
we all
minute,
did, right? I think we all did.
yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of caught me by surprise, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
wait a minute, Saudi Arabia does have money, so they must have threw a lot of money at Eddie Hearn. So now I'm saying, hearing Mikey Garcia, Manny Pacquiao, depends on Pacquiao fighting in
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, and I'm hearing different things, but I just think that if you could take boxing to certain countries, it puts boxing on the world stage, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love the Josh Taylor and
Oh yeah.
Prograis fight in England. I love the Noe fight, against the Filipino Flash.
Yeah.
So you could put boxing and they sell out in Saudi Arabia or countries you would think that is not a hotbed for boxing and become a success. Why not?
Exactly. I think this is going to be like a new trend. No, I think this is going to be like a landmark, and we're living history. We are living history in boxing right now, historical times as far as that, for the sport of boxing. I personally think that through the zone, because we got to understand, you guys, that the zone, from what I understand, the limited knowledge that I have, I mean, I don't know it all, but the zone is, before it came to America, we know the zone as a general sports platform. It's not just for boxing. More than anything, they're pushing boxing here in America and the Americas, right, and the Western Hemisphere. But I mean, the zone is known for pushing a myriad of sports. Even what is that called? I'm sorry. What is it called where you throw the? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I
Dart,
forgot.
dart.
Yeah, yeah. I think you already got it. Darts. I mean, that's a sport. They're pushing that. They're pushing bow and arrow, I think, or something. Arcing. I don't know what the heck that's called, but they got that. I mean, they got a whole. They have a whole myriad of sports on the zone platform, and like you said, I mean, I think that they got the money. That's the reason why I say this. They got the money, even though they're probably not getting a return right now as far as in American boxing. Do you think they're getting a return? Or with all this money they're spending, look at the contract with Canelo. Look at the money they spent to give, just recent. Okay, Mikey Garcia versus Jesse Vargas. I guess rumors have it or whatever. Mikey Garcia made at least $7 million to fight Jesse Vargas. That wasn't even a championship fight. Okay, technically speaking, it was a diamond belt, right? I guess they call it a championship belt or whatever. But I mean, like a real championship belt, it wasn't even for that. $7 million for that? Wow. So it seems like they're just dishing out money. I don't think they have gotten a return yet. Do you think they're getting profit from the subscribers so far in America?
No, they're not getting a return. The zone is staying afloat because the people who run it have a lot of money.
Exactly, yeah.
But you have to have some kind of return on your investment, or people that runs it is going to start looking at you sideways. So Eddie Hearn has to come up with something. He has to sign the Mikey Garcia fight, $7 million. I mean, hey, I would take it because
Oh
you're
yeah.
offering me money. I'm a capitalist, man. So I would
Yep.
take it, but I don't see them getting a return on their investment. So let's see what happens with the channel being in England now. That
Right.
What's going to happen? Give it another 6 months. So I don't see how long they can survive without a return on their investment. Talk about the sport of boxing, paying out millions. The contract with Canelo, they backed up the truck for Canelo, and I don't see how they making it, man. But let's see it another year or 6 months from now.
Yeah, exactly. I personally think that they are going to have a profit, I guess, in the long run with this whole international global push. I think that's going to really help, like you said a moment ago, that in Saudi Arabia, that thing was sold out, man, that fight. And I'm sure, I don't know the numbers and stuff like that, but I'm sure it was a great success, man, that rematch with Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz. I think it did great. And I personally think it just opens up doors for the sport of boxing and in general for DAZN, right? And for boxers too. It's going to be a great, I mean, they got great names as it is. Devin Haney, they got Andrade, you know what I mean? I guess I would say Triple G is a great name, I guess you can say, but he's out the door. I think he should go to retirement soon, but what have you, right? Tevin Farmer's on DAZN too, right? Yeah, but I heard his contract is ending soon, isn't it?
Yeah, they need fighters to survive. You need popular fighters, a Tank Davis who connects with the young crowd. Put them in Atlanta. Mikey Garcia was good. Fought in Texas. If you could sign certain fighters and put them in certain areas, then that's a good way to start. But having fights in Saudi Arabia, and I just think that they're giving Eddie Hearn, they made him a good deal, but they have to be losing money, man. I just can't see how they are getting a return for their investment, man. I mean, they paying out millions to everybody, Farmer and Andrade. They try to sign Charlo, so we have to wait and see what England does. Being in England now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think we should be optimistic, because a lot of people, I mean, I'm not the type of person, and there are other channels that do it, and I definitely respect it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has their own opinion and it's respectable. And I learn from them also. So I mean, there's nothing against that. But the thing is that I'm not the type of person to like uplift, I guess we can say, or promotional, promoters. I do to a certain extent when it comes to like Bud Crawford and re-signing, Andrade re-signing to the zone, and they're not getting really the best fights, I guess. And to a certain extent, I do talk about it, but I don't really promote like, what, hey, PBC is way better than this, or Top Rank is way better than that. I don't really do that. I try to be optimistic in all sides because, I mean, we got to accept, like you said, you're even subscribed to this zone. So that's cool. I mean, the more boxing, the better. So, so I kind of see that, like for example, so we understand that the zone, I mean, it's a powerhouse for money. I mean, because of all the other sports that they promote, and it's a whole, they're doing other things. I personally think that it's gonna, just like I said a moment ago, like you were saying, I think it's gonna open doors for other fighters. You got Principality Stadium over there in UK. It's humongous. If I'm not mistaken, Anthony Joshua fought against Klitschko. Was it in the Principality Stadium? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but
it was a humongous place, man.
Yeah, that was I mean, it's not new for England because Frank Bruno, when he fought Tim Witherspoon, almost had 100,000 people. George Groves versus Carl Froch, one of the biggest fights in England history.
Awesome.
They packed the stadium, but I don't remember where that was at. Renee Box Young.
Well, the reason why I say that. Yeah, the only reason why I say it is because, I mean, that opens up amazing doors. I mean, I think that's great, the zone going global like this, because I think fighters are going to have great opportunities, and that's what we got to do. We got to support fighters where they're getting, the best opportunities, and I'm not against that at all. And I it's interesting because, from Mexico, I mentioned it before in other videos that I push, that here in Mexico, and it's going to be pushed in Mexico, I'm almost positive. As a matter of fact, I saw a tweet the other day. I don't remember the source, but I saw a tweet the other day. I think it was from Eddie Hearn, but I'm not really clear. I can't confirm it. But I see so many tweets, and from sources, and I do remember something along the lines of DAZN in Mexico. I think it was from DAZN or it was Eddie Hearn. I don't remember. But I mean, I foresaw that. I already explained it in other videos. I explained it in Spanish that, DAZN, Eddie Hearn's going to come in Mexico. He's going to push a lot more fights here in Mexico. And the reason why I say all this is because here in Mexico, thus far, we get DAZN fights for free. Okay, I mean, we don't have to subscribe or anything like that. We have a channel here. I watch all these DAZN fights for free, which is cool. But if they come down to Mexico, we're going to have to subscribe, I guess. They're probably not going to put it on television anymore. So, I mean, so we're going to pay. Hey, but we got to support, right? We got to support the fighters. We got to support, this movement. I think we're living, like I said, I think we're living historical times. And I think that, these fighters are going to get better opportunities. We're going to see better matchups. I personally think that, right? And so, yeah, DAZN going global, I think, is a great idea. But we'll see where it goes, right? We'll see what it goes, especially with Eddie Hearn in the mix. I think personally, Eddie Hearn is a big influence on DAZN, and a lot of people debate this. Oh no, Eddie Hearn is not DAZN. I mean, yeah, we understand that he's with Matchroom Boxing. He's promoting in that area. He has his own stable of fighters, but I personally think he's influencing DAZN a lot. He's a key player in DAZN, and I think that's one of the reasons why they're going global in They're going global in boxing, right? So I mean, so we'll see how it goes, man. We'll see how it goes. Now, real quick, let's go back a little bit with what Kurtis Anderson mentioned ago about Mikey Garcia possibly fighting Pacquiao. We have heard rumors. What do you think, bro? I mean, this is another thing I can just throw in there before we go to another topic. What do you think, Kurtis, about Mikey Garcia in the welterweight division? I mean, with the performance we saw, against Vargas, this is what I saw, man. I mean, it was a great fight, obviously. Two warriors, Mexican fighter. I mean, I liked it. It was a lot of action. I loved it. It was entertaining. But I think that Mikey Garcia, as far as in this perspective of him being in the welterweight division, he was getting caught a lot by Jesse Vargas. Even some people debated that, I mean, a lot of, people were saying that Jesse Vargas, he could have maybe won, or it could have been a tie maybe. I mean, because I personally saw Mikey Garcia was getting touched up a lot by Jesse Vargas. And obviously styles make fights, because those two fighters, Mikey Garcia and Jesse Vargas, they're not the type to back back down. They go head to head. It kind of reminds me, of those traditional fighters. Look, I don't know if you saw this, bro, but this was in Mexico more than anything. Okay, and I got to push another video on this too. I was planning on doing it today. I have so many things in my mind that I want to push today, but look, check this out. Chavez Sr., Cesar Chavez, legendary Cesar Chavez Sr., fought against El Travieso. Okay, he fought against him in Saturday night in an exhibition. It was a rematch exhibition fight. The reason why I say this is because, man, and I'm going to push a video on that. I got to. They were going toe to toe, bam, bam, bam. You hit me, I hit you back 5 times more, But, that's traditional Mexican. And that's the reason why I think Mikey Garcia was getting touched up a lot. But do you think, Kurtis Anderson, Mikey Garcia is going to do something big in the welterweight division?
Honestly, I don't like Mikey Garcia at that weight. His body is just not responding, to the weight. He doesn't have the size or the length. Usually, that fighters that move up in weight that performs effectively are fighters who has length, that are long and tall, or have the frame for it. Thin rail type of fighters. Mikey is not that kind of fighter. He should have stopped at 140. He did a fight at 140 in 3 fights, I believe, against Elia Rojas, Bruner, and Limpinets. With him jumping weights like that and him being short, I just think that his quickness. I mean, he throws a very educated 1-2. He'll measure the jab and then throw a quick right hand behind it. That's how he caught Vargas. He mastered that. He can catch anybody with that punch. But what kind of surprised me, how easy the Vargas were hitting Mikey Garcia, and I was like, wow, I could see that punch from my house. He was throwing a wide left hook and catching Mikey, and he buckled Mikey, in the 4th round. I seen Mikey knees. So that doesn't bode well if he fights a heavier puncher, somebody that can time him, like a Danny Garcia with the left hook, or a Terrence Crawford who could fight a variety of ways, or Manny Pacquiao who jumps in and out. I really don't like Mikey at that weight, but I don't think he's going to drop back down. So I think from here on in, he's going to be a welterweight. It depends who he fights, because Mikey's going to be a tough out because he's too good of a fighter. But it depends who he fight. Like Sean Porter would give him a lot of trouble because of the strength. And Mikey is not a natural 147-pounder. And on top of that, his body doesn't respond well to the weight. So he's lucky that Vargas didn't have the highest of IQ. And plus, he's a warrior. And because if Vargas would have boxed more, that decision would have went to him, but Mikey got the knockdown, and Vargas wasn't the same after that.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree, man. I mean, I'm just not sure about Mikey Garcia in the whole welterweight division. And now, if he does fight Pacquiao, I guess they're in it's in talks. It's rumored, right? We cannot always depend on rumors and talks unless it's official. But I mean, a lot of people, it looks like it's inclining towards a Pacquiao fight, but we gotta understand, you guys. I mean, Mikey is a highly skilled fighter, just like Kurtis Anderson broke down. And the thing is that Pacquiao, he's out of his prime. How many more fights do you think Pacquiao is going to fight, bro? I mean, because I love Pacquiao, a legend. I love him. He's just hands down legendary fighter. It's just that I personally think, even though Pacquiao is doing great, he beat Keith Thurman very convincingly, amazing fight. Amazing performance by Pacquiao, but obviously we got to admit, at least me, I admit Pacquiao is not in his prime anymore. I mean, you can go back to when he was in his prime. Wow. I mean, right now he's not in his prime. He's still obviously got the skills. He's still got the footwork, but he's probably not as fast. So how much longer do you think Pacquiao will be fighting, bro? I mean, because if he fights, the reason why I say is about if he fights Mikey, okay, I personally think Pacquiao will annihilate Mikey Garcia. I kind of think that. But Pacquiao has to be careful because Pacquiao's not in his prime anymore. And I think he could get caught with that fundamental skills you just mentioned a moment ago. Mikey Garcia's jab is so precise. It's fast. 1-2, pop, pop. obviously Mikey Garcia, I don't think he can get out of the way of Pacquiao's flurries because Pacquiao is still fast. I mean, I'm not negating that at all. He is still fast. He is really fast still, but not as before, right? So, I mean, do you think Curtis Anderson that Pacquiao has much longer in boxing?
You could look at it two ways. Number one, a great fighter always have one great last fight left in him, and number two, he can grow old overnight. We have to wait and see who's Manny Pacquiao's going to fight. But these young guys, they have to be, they have to understand that you're fighting a legend. Pacquiao is not a good fighter. He's a great fighter. He's very dangerous. I don't care if Spence is fighting Pacquiao, Mikey Garcia, Sean Porter, Terrence Crawford. You're gonna go out. You're gonna have to go out there and beat that guy.
Yeah.
Because if not, he's gonna keep fighting.
Yeah,
Who
definitely.
knows? If he beats another young fighter, Renee, he's gonna
Yeah.
keep fighting because his train of thought is saying these young guys can't beat me. He would never say that out loud because he's not that kind of fighter. He's a humble guy. But
Yeah.
a young guy is going to have to retire Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao is not going to retire from boxing. Boxing is going to have to retire Manny Pacquiao, meaning there's got to be some young fighter out there in the welterweight division, Danny Garcia, Porter, whoever, that's going to have to beat Manny Pacquiao. Then he will say, you know what? I'm not as good as I used to be. I'm going to retire some young lions out here. But you see what happened in the Keith Thurman fight. Keith Thurman brought that on himself because he killed his own momentum when he fought Soto Caras and was knocking him out, and Diego Chavez. I said, he's a pretty solid welterweight. Hits hard, but with the long layoffs, and I think Keith wanted the money too. What he did was he closed the gap. He let Manny Pacquiao, close the gap on him by stopping his own momentum in his career, long layoffs and injury. And that's kind of how I look at Earl Spence with the car crash. Manny wasn't calling out Earl before. He wanted no smoke with Earl Spence.
No, he didn't. And I remember, real quick, bro. I don't want to interrupt. But do you remember? And you can just see it in the body language. You can just see it in the body. Remember when was it? Spence beat. Who did he beat? When Pacquiao went up in the ring. Remember?
Was it Lamont Peterson?
I think it was. I really don't remember. And then Pacquiao, he got up in the ring. And Spence, man, he's like, let's go, man. I want that smoke. Spence, he don't back down from anybody. And Pacquiao, he wasn't saying yes, he wasn't saying no. He was just sitting there like smiling, and he didn't want any smoke with Spence. And exactly what you're saying. Go on with your point, but I totally agree. You can see it. And then now, after the accident, now Pacquiao wants to fight Spence. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah, and what Spence did, he did himself an injustice because I don't know if he's going to be the same or not. Every fighter that was in a car crash and survived the car crash, when they kept fighting, they were never the same. Sandy Sadler and other fighters, they were never the same. So, I don't know. Now Pacquiao wants to fight Spence, and other people, Danny Garcia wants to fight Spence. After the car crash. So we got to wait and see, how Earl's going to look. But another point I want to make real quick is that when you take on fighters like Canelo and Pacquiao, you're going to have a certain type of moxie and savvy and ring IQ to beat those guys. It's not going to be easy to beat those guys. When people talk about Charlo beat Canelo, and I'm like, no, he's not. And I don't want to stray too far, but my point being, these guys are true professionals, and a lot of fighters are not. For instance, Tank Davis is a damn good fighter, but see, in boxing, you have to hone your craft and skills. You can't have the whole block in your locker room, 50 guys, or you can't be hugging up on your wife like Deontay Wilder. It's certain do's and don'ts before the fight, which is called preparation, and you cannot do certain things. You separate from your friends and your family, your wife and your kids. You don't bring them around till after the fight. Keith Thurman, maybe he thought it was going to be easy, or I can beat Pacquiao, and Pacquiao showed you. So there's a lesson for the young fighters. You're going to have to hone your skills. You can't blow up in between weights. You can't be drinking and eating yourself out of division. You're going to have to prepare yourself properly to give yourself a fighting chance to beat those guys.
Exactly. Oh man, that's so true. Now, that's why I love, man, this is amazing. That's why it's such an honor to have Kurtis Anderson. And I was waiting for the time. I was like, man, one day I got to have Kurtis on the live, man. And I hope this isn't the only time, brother. but
Anytime, man. Anytime, man. I just want to say this. When you fight a Lomachenko, now Teofimo has the athleticism to give him problems, but if he gets off to a rough start, what's going to happen? Because he's young. That's why
exactly.
Lomachenko was calling out Tank Davis, because Lomachenko knows Tank Davis is not mentally ready.
Exactly. And we see it time and time again with Tank Davis. I love him as much as I love him, but I also have to be, see the good and the bad, right? And just like you said, you got, like, for example, Lomachenko, Pacquiao, Mayweather. Let's just go back to Mayweather, too. When he fought Canelo, same thing like you're saying. Even though Canelo, he's a really serious fighter and, he trains great. It seems like Canelo has a pretty clean lifestyle as far as like drinking, partying, et cetera, et cetera. But look at Mayweather, and his training comes from, back in the day fighters, who trained, appropriately, who trained professionally. You know what I mean? And that's why Mayweather had such a longevity. And that's why when Mayweather fought Canelo, which was a marquee fight, because a lot of people thought, wow, Canelo, he's in his prime, Canelo's young, this and that. But Mayweather, he gave him an amazing clinic, And how old was Mayweather when he fought Canelo? 38, 36, 30? How old was he?
He was 36. It's the preparation that leads up to the fight that gives he always gave himself the best chance to win. Even when he got hurt against Mosley in the second round, I seen Mosley knock people out with that punch, and Mayweather didn't go down because that's called conditioning. Mentally and physically, he knew what to do when he got hurt. He stayed close to Mosley, and he swarmed him. He kept Mosley close. People don't really understand the science of boxing. There's a lot that goes into it. That's why these young fighters today, like Tank, he got 1 foot in the street and 1 foot in the boxing gym. He doesn't train in between fights like he should. That's why Roberto Duran blew up. I saw Duran chuck down the steak right in front of me at Victor's Cafe in Manhattan. I used to go there, and Duran, that was one of his favorite places to eat. When he was in New York, his favorite meal was a steak and orange juice. He used to drink like a quart of orange juice, and he used to blow up in between fights, just like Ricky Hatton. And then when you look at somebody like Marvin Hagler, who fought in one weight class throughout his career because he was always in shape in between fights. That's the key. Stay in shape. You have to dedicate yourself to your skill, because that's what boxing called for. The boxing gods is not going to let you beat good fighters on a consistent basis when you're out of shape in between fights and mentally.
I completely agree. Now, one of the, there have been talks, amongst boxing enthusiasts and fans about, a possible in the future, maybe, right, or what have you. But from what I know, Haney expressed moving up to 140. But apart from that fact, but just for the talk, for the sake of this, what we're talking about, of young fighters preparing appropriately. For example, Devin Haney is one of the few, I guess I can say. Devin Haney is one of those few fighters who is totally focused. His training regimen is very, very strict and on point, compared to, because there were talks before, right? Oh, Devin Haney versus Tank Davis. I personally think with the discipline that Devin Haney has, at his age, I think he has a good chance of beating Tank Davis. You know what I mean? Just for the reasons that you're saying a moment ago. I remember some time ago, with Deontay Wilder, even I remember some time ago him admitting in an interview. I love Deontay Wilder, but I got to say this. You know what I'm saying? That if I'm not mistaken, somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But I do remember clearly that he admitted, I forgot who it was against, that in training camp he had sex with his wife or something. I don't know. He said, man, he said this in his own words. He said, man, I was horny, this and that. And then they asked him that, hey, I don't remember what the reporter asked him, something along the lines of hey, is it true that your legs get, weaker when you have relations with the woman during training camp or what have you? And he said, well, yeah. And he was like talking along those lines. And he said, hey, man, I got to say that I did it with my wife, like the night before or a couple nights before he had a fight. So it's just like you said, man, I think a lot has to do with, how these, youngsters are training. And it's going to determine, how long you last in the sport, how sharp you're going to be for your next fight. And Pacquiao has shown that, getting back to what we're talking about, that Pacquiao, he has shown that. I mean, he has a clean lifestyle. And I'm just iffy. I am kind of iffy with this thing that what we're talking about right now. I'm iffy of Tank, man. I love Tank so much, and he's one of my favorites. But I'm not sure, man. I'm just his next opponent, I don't think has been announced. But a fighter who lives that kind of lifestyle, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look promising. Look what happened to Mike Tyson, man. Best legendary heavyweight for a while, and then he just started living that lifestyle. I don't remember as far as his personal life, but I think he started getting into partying and doing things, just getting kind of sloppy, in his personal life. And then he started losing. Am I right along those lines, Curtis?
Oh, yeah. I used to see Mike Tyson at a club called Bentley's in Midtown Manhattan.
Oh, wow.
He used to park his car in the middle of the street, go to the DJ table, tell him to play a certain song, grab a girl from the audience and dance with him and just get in his car and leave. I used to see him on 125th Street. I used to see him in a boxing bar, which still stands today, called Ringside Boxing Bar. Arturo Gatti and Mike Tyson used to sit up in there, and
wow.
joke around and stuff like that. But, Mike Tyson is the antithesis of what not to do. He did everything wrong. Had sex with multiple Asian women right before the Buster Douglas fight. He couldn't control himself. He lacked discipline. And Hector Camacho, Riddick Bowe, Mike Tyson, all from New York, couldn't maintain and control themselves. All from New York, because New York can be very distracting. It's so much to do, especially back in them days. Clubs and women and everything. So they was easily distracted, and they never, all three fighters now, Zab Judah too, this is not a coincidence. They couldn't control themselves, where, Mike Tyson people around them were yes men, and that's the worst kind of man to be for a fighter. You can't lie to your own guy.
Exactly, man. And before we get to the next topic, we'll have one more last topic. I mean, there's so much more to talk about, but the time. Okay, I gotta give a salute to all those who are in the chat. Let me scroll up, man. Ack Reacher, obviously, salute, brother. Trey X, Christopher Jurnett. I mean, I gotta show that love to those who are in chat. Derek Bailey. We have Mike Biggs Boxing also, D-Lo 404 Boxing. Go subscribe to these channels if you haven't, guys. Gil Coles, Andre, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Much love, one love. D Hodges, thank you so much. JC, what is good, brother? The author, what is good, brother? Thank you so much for tuning in. Don Dada, Kenneth Johnson, et cetera, man. The list goes on. Sorry if I didn't mention you guys. I mean, just because of time, I want to get to this. Yeah, Mike Biggs Boxing. Go subscribe to Mike Biggs. Go subscribe to all these channels, you guys. Mark Blake, what is good, brother? Thank you so much. D Hodges, I don't know if I remember mentioning you. Brandon White, et cetera, man. King Louie 2 Boxing, Chris Reyna, guys, it's so much love, man. Thanks so much. Trick Nolte. I mean, hey, thank you guys so much. It's amazing to have you guys on, man. Always. So let's get to the last topic, brother, because of time. I wish I could have more time with you, but hey, thank you so much for saying that, bro. Later, we're gonna have you more on the live, man. I don't really go live as it is much, so when I do, I mean, I'm gonna make sure to have Kurtis Anderson with us, man. Definitely. So, okay, bro. One more thing. Okay. So I got to talk about this. Deontay Wilder, man. Bronze bomber. Salute to the brother. You know what I'm saying? Okay, man. How do you see this playing out? Now, I heard recently, I saw, like I said, I skimmed through tweets and things like that. I heard, I just don't remember the source, that Tyson Fury is probably contemplating going down to cruiserweight. I don't know if that's true, but it doesn't surprise me because of Tyson Fury's inconsistency. His thought patterns are very out there and sporadic. Just we go back to after the first Tyson Fury fight, between Tyson Fury and Wilder, right? After that, he did the duck move. A lot of people, controversially say he didn't. He went to Top Rank, avoided Wilder for 2 fights, came back to fight Wilder in a controversial win. I think he boxed amazingly, though. I got to admit that with Tyson Fury. But, this whole cheating thing and stuff like that, now there are talks of him going down to possibly cruiserweight. The reason why I say all this is that, do you think that there's going to be a trilogy this year, brother? I kind of doubt it. But Deontay Wilder is for it. He wants the trilogy. He wants to go back at it, because Deontay Wilder is a warrior. He has heart, you know what I'm saying? And talks have been that around July, okay? Now, I personally think that's not a good move, okay, on my part, my humble opinion. Man, I'm worried for Wilder to go back into the ring in July after the injuries he has suffered, right? But do you think there's going to be a trilogy this year, brother? And if you think there is, what do you think's going to happen, man?
There will be a trilogy, but I'm guessing fall. It's way too soon because when you lose like that, not only mentally, but you gotta heal psychologically. Some fighters come back and do well in a rematch. Charlo defeated Harrison, got his title back. It's all mental. It's all mental in a rematch. People saying he got to use footwork. It has nothing to do with that. It's his attitude. It's just like a basketball player getting a rebound. Getting a rebound has nothing to do with skills. It's all mental. It's all attitude and determination. Deontay Wilder is going to have a out of mind and out of body experience, sort of like Joe Louis had against Max Schmeling in 1938, where when he was getting his hand wrapped, sports writer said, "Joe, how many rounds?" And Joe Louis raised one finger, said 1.
Wow.
And he went out there and cracked Max Schmeling vertebrae and beat him bad. I never seen a fighter perform like that in a rematch. Joe was possessed that fight. And that's kind of how Deontay Wilder is going to have to be, because he doesn't have the style to beat Fury. Because if Fury is aggressive again, because now the smartest thing Fury did, he said after the first fight that I had to go back to my roots, and that was the Kronk Gym.
Wow.
And Sugar Hill was taught by Emmanuel Stewart, one of the best trainers ever. And a lot of people didn't understand that Fury used to live with Emmanuel Stewart, him and Andy Lee. They lived together in the same house, so he went back to his roots, and he said, I can be even more effective against a guy like Wilder if I put him on the back foot. So him and Sugar Hill, they broke down film, and Kronk has their own style. Tommy Hearns, Jesse Benavidez fought out of there, Jimmy Paul, Milton McQuarrie, Dwayne Thomas, Hill McKinte. They all have a style where they throw a long right hand, but they come towards you with an aggressive jab. That's Kronk fighting style in Detroit, and it worked to perfection. He put Wilder on the back foot, and Wilder makes a lot of mistakes going backward. He's not Muhammad Ali. Only Muhammad Ali can get away with moving his head straight back. His footwork is not that good. So in a rematch, Wilder is going to have to impose his will on Fury, or else he's going to get knocked out again, because Fury is a 6'9" Gene Tunney. He's a scientific fighter, but he has size on him. So that will makes it even rougher for Wilder. Wilder's going to have to throw a cluster of punches. But like I said before, if Wilder don't develop a second and third punch, he's not going to win, because a guy that throws one punch over and over again is not going to beat Fury.
Now, intertwining this, what you're saying is that, we have heard that, and we have seen that George Foreman, he wants to help Wilder for the trilogy. Also Mayweather, whether honest or not, who knows, right? I personally think, I don't know, it's hard to say, right? But Mayweather also chiming in that he wants to help that he wants to help Deontay Wilder for a trilogy fight. Do you think that would help? Do you think that would help Wilder? And do you think that he's going to accept that? You think Wilder will accept help from Foreman or Mayweather? And do you think it's kind of like three questions in one, right? Do you think Mayweather's honest about it, about him helping out Wilder? Would Wilder accept help from outside sources like legendary fighters like George Foreman and Mayweather? And will it help Wilder?
They could tell him everything. They can read him nursery rhymes. They can tell him what to do. Is no harm in that. But when the bell goes ding, Mayweather
Yeah,
and Foreman
exactly.
can't fight for him.
Yeah.
He's going to have to take on his own responsibility and like I said, fight a certain way, fight aggressive, smart, and put Fury on the back foot. That's his only way, and not overshoot the right hand. I don't like fighters. I think what happened to Wilder, he became a victim of the knockout punch where it was
Yeah.
fool's gold, knocking
Yep.
out
Yep.
Brazil brutally and Ortiz, because his
Yep.
last two fights, he has lost 13 out of the last 14 rounds.
Yeah, man.
That's
Yeah.
not good, man. That's not
Yeah.
good because it's going
Yeah.
to catch up with you. A knockout artist can hurt you with any punch. The Trinidad's and the Gerald McClellans, the Roberto Gomez's, the Tommy Hearns, and the Julian Jacksons, left uppercut, right hook, left uppercut, straight
Yeah.
right hand.
Yeah.
That helps a lot. But
Definitely.
you can neutralize a fighter who only has one hand.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you just said that it has to go beyond, that one punch. I mean, and that's something I have been saying about, Wilder needs to have more combos, more of that, different approach, right? When it comes to fighting Fury. Now, me personally, if they have this trilogy, I don't know, man. I don't know if I see it 50-50, man. I kind of got the edge for Tyson Fury, but Wilder has an advantage because of if Tyson Fury goes off the rabbit trail in his personal life, right? Because we know that Tyson Fury cannot, it seems like he cannot maintain what we were talking about a moment ago, the discipline, right? The discipline in his personal life, going way out of weight, overweight, and just partying or what have you, right? And just him being, very unpredictable in his personal life. So that if he goes off the yin yang, if he goes off the rabbit trail in his personal life between now and the trilogy, Wilder has a big chance. But just like as Kurtis Anderson said, I was really worried for Wilder on the rematch with Ortiz because of all those rounds he was losing. And I was like, man, he's going to fight. If he's going to fight, when I thought back then, he's going to fight Fury in a rematch. The way that he fought against Ortiz, I was like, I don't know, man. I was worrying for Wilder in the Ortiz rematch as it was. The first 6 rounds, I was like, man, Wilder, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing? I don't know. I was thinking just hoping on that power punch. That's really one-dimensional, man. So, but man, it is what it is. We'll see what happens, right? We'll just see from now and then. Real quick, we're gonna close it now. But Ack Reacher asked a question. I want to leave this to Kurtis Anderson. Maybe he knows more about it as far as Stevenson fighting Mariaga. What y'all think? What do you think, Kurtis Anderson, about that?
That's a good fight for Stevenson. Mariaga is a tough fighter. Stevenson has skills. I like seeing young fighters in with tough guys that can push them. I think Mariaga is going to push him, but I think Stevenson is going to win from my hometown, Newark, New Jersey. I know his family. Get him ready for future fights. That's a good fight. Stevenson should win it. He should, but in boxing, you never know. But I got Stevenson beating Mariaga. I think that's a good fight for him to get him ready for other fights.
When is that fight?
Saturday on ESPN. I get ready to say HBO. ESPN.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to watch that one, definitely. So, guys, thank you so much, man. I want to get to the chat. It's just the time, man. So, thank you so much. Yeah, hopefully, man, we'll have Kurtis Anderson in another live. So, yeah, Kurtis Anderson's up for it. Awesome. So, expect Kurtis Anderson more, on Renee Box Young channel, man. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share. Go back earlier in this live also. Subscribe to all those other channels that we mentioned, where Kurtis Anderson is. Any last words, Kurtis?
Hey, man, you got a good boxing mind, man. And salute to the chat. Ack Reacher is a fighter. Support Ack Reacher. He knows his boxing. Trick Nolte, D. Hodges, Kenneth Johnson, thank you for the gift. I love all those guys, man. They support me. They give me accolades, man, and I'm still learning. I mean, you guys say I'm this and that, which is great. I learn every day. I don't care who it's from. I don't care if a guy doesn't know boxing. If he say something, and I can be like, hey, that's what I should have said. You never stop learning with the sport of boxing. And I go back to 1600s and work my way up to 2020. My father, Calvin Lee, taught me about the sport of boxing. But I'm grateful to be talking about boxing. I don't have to go to the gym in Newark. I could just sit in my living room with my Adidas sweatpants and my moccasins and talk boxing. But Renee, man, I don't know how old you are, but you got a good boxing mind, man. And
Thanks, man.
I honor being on the show with you, man. I look forward to being on future shows so we can break down the great sport of the sweet science.
Oh, heck yeah, definitely, man. Lord willing, we'll definitely have you on more. We're going to chop it up more, man. This is just the beginning. Thank you so much, guys. Again, share, like, subscribe. A great show with Kurtis Anderson, the historian. Tune in to all those other shows that he's in, right? Go earlier back in the chat, right? And the live, sorry. And he explained it all. So thank you so much again, Kurtis Anderson. The honor is mine, brother. Salute from Mexico. One love to the whole chat. Thank you so much, guys. Peace out. Peace out, Kurtis Anderson.
Peace out, Renee. Peace out, chat.
Right on.